that, that was the Rockets game. Very emotional, a lot of feelings, because although we have had a game against John Wall, this was his homecoming that unfortunately is going to be hampered by COVID, which means there's no fans, so you don't get that reception. And that tribute video was weak. It was weak, and we're going to leave it at that, because if we don't, I'm going to keep ranting about it. So, there's two prevailing narratives that exist due to this John Wall trade. And, sort of the idea of seeing Wall versus Beal is interesting, but more so Westbrook versus Wall because of how people viewed the trade. If you weren't looking at it through the emotional lens of why would they trade Wall in such a manner, why would they do him dirty like this, and if you take that away and look at the basketball reasons, everyone was sort of saying, well, Westbrook at his best, Wall could never reach, blah, 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 and Wall wasn't doing this and wasn't doing that, and Westbrook is, it's like this proven player that you go for. If we only looked at, I guess the second half, then you could say that the Wizards may have been okay in making this trade. Do I agree with that? Personally, no. Every time I see Wall and even seeing sort of little flashbacks that they would show, it just makes me sad and upset, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And with every Westbrook pull-up that clanked off the rim, it made me more upset and more just like, is this really a basketball reasons trade? Are we sure? Are we gonna David Stern, rest in peace, this trade seriously for basketball reasons? But in that first half, you could see that this trade just looked like an utter failure, and that was because this team, the Wizards team, was winning in spite of Westbrook, not because of him. So you just see him clanking shot after shot after shot, and our offense only really being built ISOs, which occasionally resulted in turnovers. There's the whole issue of tunnel vision that I said has plagued this team constantly. But we did get some surprise. We got one surprise contribution from a guy who we've been hoping to get since, we paid him $80 million. So that was nice. But yeah, just Westbrook versus Wall. Obviously, it's been a certain amount of games. And after a certain amount of games, certain trends start to crystallize, and you can start to give some type of definition to it. Obviously, long term for both these teams is what you're going to want to look at as far as a trade. But right now, if you're a Wizards fan, watching how Westbrook plays, at least in that first half, makes you want Wall back, even if you already did want Wall back. Because there's two sides to Westbrook. One where he just doesn't stop shooting. He's clanking. Nothing is working. All he needs to really do is play make, but he refuses to do so, and the team starts losing. And that's when you get the people who call him Westbrook, Jesus. The people who call him Westbrook, when they start to feel vindicated, is because of this. Because it's like you're just turning over the ball, you're not passing it, and nothing is happening. Every time I saw a Russ post up, I just felt nauseous. Every time he took a shot, I felt nauseous. The only time that it felt okay is when he was passing the ball or he was attacking the lane when it was it was clearly sensible, versus him just pulling up just randomly. Why are you doing that? And he would hit it's just, as far as the Wall trade goes, I am going to be a bit biased due to the fact that I have an affinity for a point guard who played for this same team for 10 years over a guy who I'm not as emotionally connected towards and whose play has not been as beneficial as it has been shown to do in the past, especially on top of the fact that the owner sort of hinted at the fact that he's high character and durable. And though Westbrook is high character, that will never change no matter how many injuries he might have or no matter how much rest in back-to-backs. His character is unquestionable. His durability, however, has been somewhat questionable. He's had to rest, and I'm sure that's partly the Wizards' fault for not diagnosing. Why didn't you just sit him if he wasn't healthy? That makes the most sense. But again, this goes into the bigger picture, and right now everybody's going to look at how Westbrook versus Wall is doing, and if you only looked at that first half, you would think that the Wizards lost this trade. And right now, it's still really hard for even if you are a fan of Russ, you have to admit it's really hard for you to argue that Russ has been positive for the Washington Wizards. Maybe for Rockets at a point in time, and definitely for the Thunder. For the Wizards, Russell Westbrook has been a mixed bag. And that's not exactly what you want when you make such a hefty declaration that you did this for basketball reasons, and the basketball reasons aren't exactly proving themselves. Now, if you look at it from the other sort of prevailing narrative, we've never gotten to see Wall versus Beal. This is pretty interesting. This is pretty cool. And in terms of their battle per se, I guess Beal came out on top because the Wizards actually won their second game in a row and helped the Rockets find their sixth loss in a row. So really interesting there. But beyond that, they don't really defend each other too much, and most of the time it's a quick, like, they end up, usually Beal ends up getting switched or Wall ends up getting switched, but for the most part they guard different people, so it wasn't like a head-to-head matchup. But Wall, like, showed positive assets of his game, of like, as far as like why we miss him. You know, he's going in the lane for the classic right hand dunk. He's zooming through the defense. He's hitting them with that classic. He'll walk to the side, dribble to the side, and just like look like he's going to keep going, and then he just crosses over so fast to the left where he's hesitating. He was just cooking dudes. He was just cooking them with no mercy, and you were just thinking like, this man's gonna get a 50 piece. I was so sure he was gonna catch a 50 piece, but he couldn't shoot, and that was something that throughout his career he's been sort of, given not exactly the best. Like, we haven't looked at him with high hopes as far as his 3-point shot goes, but it's a lot better than Russell Westbrook's shot, and his shot has looked improved throughout this entire season. So a cold shooting night, and he's not a 3-point sniper. I think he did come out and want to just like break the Wizards, just absolutely demolish them, and his shooting just petered off towards the end, so it was hard for him to really make that impact beyond attacking the rim. Just Jesus, every time he attacks the rim, I'm afraid. I have to be afraid now of John Wall drives. I used to be excited because it meant that someone was going to get yammed on. So yeah, Wall versus Beal. Beal wins round 2, I guess. Wizards get the win. Rockets don't. I guess it's nice for Wizards fans in terms of that, but overall, just sort of like last game, it's bittersweet in a different way. Contributors to the win. Russ, technically, I guess, at the second half when he was playmaking well. There's 2 Russes, and when we get the Russ that is just chucking up shots, doing pull-up mid-ranges, random shots, and just doing that is just like, why? Just why? Like, can you explain it to me? Can you explain to me the logic? You just got the ball, and everyone knows what you're gonna do. And he missed a point blank bunny at one point. I'm like, oh my god! Like, if I wanted you to do anything, it was at least make those, because at least I could say, okay, if Russ is attacking the rim, then he's doing the thing that he's kind of famous for, because he would just maul the rim in OKC and Houston. But he couldn't even do that in the first half. And then that second half, he was like, okay, fine, I guess I'll just pass the ball. I guess I'll start playmaking more and doing those things that people say make me a really good point guard and Hall of Famer. He was finally doing that, and it's like, okay, this is good. This is good. Please continue to do this. Please stop doing those mind-numbing ISOs that lead to nowhere. The only player I want to see ISO on this team is Beal. Speaking of Beal in this game, absolutely fantastic. Killer step back. It's hitting threes. Is pretty much as unguardable as he can be with his just slithery smooth scoring and the active defense, as well as the playmaking at times that's starting to become more of a thing. It's that type of stuff is wonderful. I would love to see that happen. I would love to see sort of more of what we saw in the Boston game, where he was operating as a decoy at times to really flabbergast the defense, instead of having the defense be like, so either Russ is going to ISO and clank, or Beal is going to ISO and we're going to send like 30 guys at him and hope he doesn't pass it, because if he does, then we're screwed. Because like there was one where they doubled him at the top of the 3-point line, and he got it down to Rui, who was cutting, and it just led to a foul, and those type of plays when Beal is getting trapped is what will help this offense become more potent and more legitimately potent, as opposed to we just score a lot because the other teams we play just kind of don't care if we chuck up a bunch of shots. And when we play against like the Houston Rockets, who are playing with a skeleton crew, it's almost like it would be asinine to expect us to do anything other than score. And yet this game almost wasn't a blowout somehow. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins were single-handedly trying to kill us. I mean, Wall more so. Cousins was struggling, and I think that in terms of what helped us win was that the Rockets did have their own kind of sloppy play. But at first, they were hustling us on the boards, and like you can run a small ball crew against us even when we have big men out there, because of the fact that there's not this hustle that shows up consistently during games. Now at points we were hustling, but it just is frustrating. But yeah, Beal helped us win. Now surprise contributor who we might have paid like $80 million to do the thing that he really did today. Davis Bertans, he plays defense that would make him better on Dancing with the Stars. But when he's hitting those threes, like he had one where it was like right at the end of the quarter, fall away. He had a 4-point play one. It was just like, hey, you look familiar. I like you. You want to just keep doing that? I mean, defensively, you're going to probably give up like at least 2 points. But the +1 difference, as long as you don't give up any threes, the +1 difference is just absolutely magnificent. Love to see more of it because it's literally like the only thing we ask him to do. Now, as far as defense goes, just thinking about it, our defense has had more active hands in these last couple of games. Beal was attacking the passing lanes. I believe he had like 3 steals. I want to say Mo Wagner got a couple steals as well. There was one steal where Mo just like he got stripped by Wall, and then Mo just snatched it right back and hit a 3. So that was funny. That was really funny. But our defense is, I think, with Lopez in there, I've talked about how slow he can be. Now, in this game, it didn't matter as much because you're kind of going against DeMarcus Cousins. And when you're going against someone who's like, because DeMarcus, he's dealt with too many injuries for him to be this really speedy big that he used to be, where he was fast and strong. Now he's just strong, and it's still scary because he can also hit threes and space the floor. So at times, it still did hurt having Lopez out there. But with the way that we used Lopez in this game, matchup-wise, kind of made sense. Now, the thing that frustrated me was the fact that we never put Lin in when Mo did run into foul trouble, because Mo got like 3 fouls. I know Garrison Matthews ran into 2, and then just never played. Like, he played most of the second half. I think he missed a 3 after he had those 2 fouls. He came back in the third quarter. Like, it was the first quarter, 2 fouls, third quarter. It was really weird. But as far as bigs go, I don't know why Alex Len is catching DNPs. It doesn't make any sense. He's contributing to victories, or he's at least playing winning basketball to an extent, and for some reason he's just been catching DNPs in favor of Lopez, who normally would get cooked. And when the Rockets run small ball, he's pretty much getting cooked, especially when Wall would catch him on an island. It was a wrap. Also, when Wall caught Bertans on the island, it was just scary every time Wall got the ball, because I just knew he wanted to kill us, and he's just well within his right to kill us. So yeah, as far as DNPs go, that's the most frustrating one. I mean, I know like Isak Bonga's not going to get time, and Troy Brown Jr. probably isn't going to get time. I just know that those young guys who will contribute inevitably at some point and then just get DNP'd again, it doesn't surprise me as much. But like Alex Len is just, that's the new one that's frustrating, because it's like he clearly could have contributed here when Mo ran in the fouls and Robin Lopez is as slow as he is. And when the Rockets run small ball, like when they weren't running DeMarcus Cousins in there, Alex Len could have maybe handled it better than Robin Lopez did. And that's not to say that Lopez is bad. He's just not. He's too slow. And he might work against DeMarcus Cousins, but how many of these teams are going to be running these big lineups like we are? They're not, for the most part. And when you have something like that, you need to run the guy who's been playing well for you. But One day, the Wizards will have a competent coach, and it'll be great. Because then you'll be able to see things like the ball not sticking as much. Because the Wizards had moments of ball movement, and it was glorious, but it was moments. Most of the time, there's just like a lot of ISOs, and it's really frustrating. Because really, there should be only one player ISOing on this team. I already said it, I'm going to say it again. Only Bradley Beal is allowed to ISO. Because I want to see Denny do something else other than be trapped in the corner watching. Because he sees so many moments. I think somebody pointed out the fact that he's like pointing at like Rui being open, which seems small in hindsight, but just the fact that he has this vision to see these things, and it's just frustrating to watch him have to kind of just hopelessly throw his hands up and not get the ball. It's just like, okay, all right. And of course, that's the whole second unit move, where he's not having to run with his Smith, who's injured, so he can actually do things. But for the most part, Brooks's idea of a lineup just usually is nonsensical. Now we actually repeated a lineup that made sense. Mo Wagner was able to contribute twice, because even though he got 3 fouls, he was hitting threes. Did he take a charge this game? I don't think he took a charge this game, but he got a couple stops. We just need to do a better job of getting rebounds, for the love of God. It's like, we have 7-footers, and at times it feels like we're all 6'1", and no one is boxing out. And but again, there's a lot of issues that happen with the Wizards. So when they get a victory, I have to remember that these things are rare. We're on a winning streak, and it feels so technical. It feels like a technical winning streak. Yes, you did win these games, but did you win these games? Who else contributed well? Rui had a couple moments. I feel like most of the shots were between Westbrook, Beal, and then when they started playmaking, that's when the offense really started to open up a bit. I want to see Lin in there. I would love to see Sakbonga or Trevon Jr., but hey, we got a victory. I would love to see Westbrook never shoot again. Just play make the whole time and attack the rim. Get a dunk like you did at the end of the game. Set some down screens. Do anything, but don't shoot every 2 seconds. Because it's like just like 7 or 8 possessions of just watching the ball bounce off the rim. You start to go a little bit crazy. Or you just watch Russ run into the paint and the ball just go flying the other way. And he didn't even get blocked, someone just stole it, because he just has had a hard time. I don't want to talk about Westbrook anymore, so I'm going to shut up about Westbrook. I miss John Wall, Optimus Dime. I'm so appreciative of what not only did he do for the team, but just what he did for the community as a man and a leader, and really being such a great person. You can talk about his mistakes if you want to, but to act like anyone is going to be the pinnacle of perfection, and anyone is going to be just completely uninvolved with any kind of just like mistake is such a stupid thing to think. John Wall was such a great point guard and an even better man, and I just hope that somehow one day he'll come back to the Wizards. But for now, I'm okay, because at the end of the day, it's just basketball. It's just basketball. But in turn, Wizards fandom, I'm very sad. Wizards get a win. It's the second win in a row. It's their second time on a win streak. Last time we were on a win streak, I believe we just got mauled in the next game, playing against an MVP candidate who's a passing big man who has one hell of an offense, and we just have, I guess you have to call it defense, since they're playing the game of basketball, and sometimes we stop things. We've had active hands on defense, but the Nuggets, man. Oh man, if there's not their MVP candidate, Jamal Murray could just decide that he wants to play like Bubble Murray and absolutely eviscerate it. Yeah, this is not gonna be fun. Well, this guy says, I'm sure that Wizards are adamant fans of gold. Sometimes in life you just need a gold nugget, and I'm sure Wizards hang out with alchemists all the time, like, yo man, I just need a gold nugget, I need to feel better. Let's hope that, the Wizards find some nuggets, and they crush them, and they win somehow. I mean, it would be funny. You just find gold. Because that's what a Wizards victory is right now. It's found gold. Can't find gold for a 3-game winning streak? I'm not sure. WizWatch.